Hello again. I'm back with another runestone. And the topic for today is this runestone fake or real? Well, who knows? Let's find out, shall we? This stone is called ÖG137. It stands for Östergötland 137. It stands in a place called Kvarntorp in Ödeshög, where also the Rök Runestones stands, which you have probably heard of. This stone is interpreted as being a nonsense stone, because there are runes, but there are also other signs that are not runes, or they don't look like runes. So it's believed to be a fake stone. It's also interpreted as being a Christian stone because there is a cross on it. And that's not unusual. And it's also interpreted by some as being a copy of the Rök stone, which I personally can't see whatsoever. I think maybe the reason could be, or one of the reasons could be, that some of the actual rune symbols on this stone could be interpreted as being from the older Futhark, while some others are from the younger Futhark. There might also be some medieval runes, like this one, for example, which has a dot on it. There's an I rune with a dot makes a medieval E rune. So that could be one of the reasons, mixing the young and the old. And the theory around this is that someone wanted to make runestone, didn't know runes, so they studied other runestones in the area. And the Rök stone is actually in the area, or pretty close. So, but I don't really buy that, because I don't think there's anything about this stone that looks like the Rök stone. Some also said that the shape of the stone kind of looks like the Rök stone, but yeah, it's a stone. Stones look like this. It's a regular basic stone shaped stone, you could say. Anyway, it's about 130 centimeters tall, kind of normal rune stone size. And as I said, there are some non-runic signs, like here in the corner, for example, just some lines. And here also just some lines, and yeah. But anyway, let's get into the interpretation, if we can make one at all. And there it is. Now we can more clearly see what the signs look like. But where do we begin? Usually on runestones there is the way to see where to start reading is usually the first rune, and like for example, if this was the first rune, that's a K, and that's pointed in the reading direction. So then you start reading here. Then where you go, it's kind of a mystery. That could be exciting to find out on any runestone actually, because when they mix it up with several lines like this, you really don't know where to go. Even if you find one row, so you know this is a K pointed that way, so it starts here. Okay, but what's this? That's another kind of sign. Or do I begin here, maybe? You have to look at what way the runes are pointing. But that could be confusing. Sometimes they write it left to right, and then continue right to left, and go on like that. Sometimes they go in kind of a spiral shape, and sometimes you could go from here to there, and then maybe from there and continue that way, and then jump here and go there and go there and go. So it could be any way actually. And when a stone like this has no obvious both runes or directions, it can be a bit of a problem actually. But fear not, there is interpretations made, and this is the way it is maybe supposed to be read. It's the way that makes most sense, so to speak. So if you follow the colors, let me do this for you so we can see it more clearly. You have the top line starting with a K there, going up there, and then we continue down here, and then continue here to where's that one? I think, yeah. So we go that way, continue there. See, follow this line from the beginning, and then it suddenly just jumps and starts here. So from there, follow the yellow up to the green, and from there and stops there. So it's a kind of a, this looks like the first part of the stone, and then we start again from there and go like that with the cross in the middle there. So what does this say? Well, it doesn't say very much. The runes we have, this is a K, you can see that, that's a line. Don't really know if that's a rune yet. Then we have the thorn rune, the U, and this could be an L rune. And we have an A, and we have maybe a K rune, but made the opposite way. And this could be an R rune. Someone, usually some people interpret that as a Z, but it's probably an R. And then we have a backwards S, then we have some kind of a giraffe or something, then we have an A and an M. Then we start again with some rune, looks maybe like an A or an upside down K. We have a U, then we have this thing, which could be a K, maybe. We have an S that's very weirdly shaped, an I, we have a couple of dots, we have an A and a K maybe, or it could be a broken A. We have one dot, we have a U, I, dot, then we have something. Now we're down here, where I said these signs don't really look like runes. It could be an R, could be an S, could be, who knows. Then we have clear runes, N, I, N, S, U, N, and something. Then we have a K, an upside down U, we have an I, correct U, then we have this medieval E rune, then we have a shortwig rune, right there. The shortwig runes we used later, between the Iron Age and the medieval age, kind of somewhere like around there. So we have one medieval and some kind of late Iron Age, possibly medieval rune. Then we have a K. Then we have an A, two dots, I. This is probably an A2. Then this could be a U maybe. Then we have an S, U, I, U, I. Then we have an A with a dot. And this may be a backwards L rune. A, U, maybe a backwards K, an R again, backwards S, maybe an A rune, and another M rune. Then this thing, yeah, that could be whatever. Maybe an upside down U, who knows. then we had a U, we have an N, another E rune. A dot, backwards K it looks like, backwards K again it looks like. And this is of course the older Futhark, this is the younger Futhark. Then we have a very strange S or maybe a Z rune, or maybe something else, who knows, and an upside down K. So that's what we have. Now can we read this? Some people say it can't be read at all. And one of the problems here is that all of these signs are very clearly carved. It doesn't have that much wear and tear, so they are deeply and very clearly carved. So this is what's actually on the stone. Unless, for example, take these backwards S's here. Sometimes you find these backwards S's, but usually you can see another line that's very thin there, so it actually makes an R. But then there's an R here, so why should that be an R? And the same here, we have an R here, so why should that be an R? So some lines could be made very faintly, or they just forgot to make the lines. Just maybe they drew the runes and then when they carved them they forgot some of them. Maybe, who knows, it happens. You find that on stones sometimes. But anyway, we have like these last two lines don't look like runes at all, except this one, this one, this one, and none of those. Except if that's a backwards K, and that's a backward K too, but then we have two Ks and that doesn't make sense. And same here, we have a U. If that's a U, then what's a UU? There are no Scandinavian words that I am aware of that have two U's next to each other. I mean, of course we have words with two U's. But then we have the upside down rune here, and that sometimes on runestones we see when a rune in the middle of the text changes position or gets upside down or backwards or something, that means that you could maybe read this line that way and this line start that way, and when you come to the backwards rune you can go back and find another word. I will go into that in a later episode on the hidden runes and ways to read and find hidden meanings in runes. Because if you didn't know, runes can be read in several ways. There are layers in rune reading, and the more knowledge the rune writer or the carver had, the more layers you can find in the text. But this is not the episode to go into that, so stick around and there will be a video on hidden runes too, or a couple maybe. So if we try to translate this, maybe it starts to make a bit of sense. So first of all we have this Kadulakr. That could be a name, and of course it ends with an R, the correct R even, to end a name or a word. So maybe this is a name. Then we have a dot, and then it becomes more mysterious. If we translate this rune into an L, because you see we have this L shape and we don't really know what this is. So maybe he made a mistake, or maybe it's kind of a bind rune attempt or something, or the stone just didn't want to be carved the right way, and it could be many reasons. So that could be an L. So that could be SLAR, or maybe an M. So this could actually be an upside down R. rune. So sometimes this rune turns up both ways, just mix them around. So maybe that tells us that the shape of the rune was the more important than the actual position of it. Maybe. If we continue, then we get the word kursi. If that's a upside down K, that's a U. And I will get to, you will see in the, I think it's the next image, why this could be an R. Because this rune makes no sense in this line. If it's a K, that would make it kuksi. It sounds more Finnish, maybe. I don't think there's a word kuksi in Finnish, but yeah, anyway. So if you imagine, let's say this person writing this had seen stones with shortwig runes or abbreviated runes. Maybe this could be an R. If we follow this shape that way and we put stave here, we get an R. So maybe he saw that he couldn't fit the stave in there, so he just carved half of the letter. Who knows? And this, of course, looks like an S and an I, so kursi. That's a strange word. Then we get ak, and that could be short for auk, which means and. Then we have we, and then these two, which I have decided not to translate at all because they don't fit in, and these looks like just signs. So I didn't even put them in the translation there. Then we get the next word, ninsunk or ninsun a. I don't know, this could be an upside down K, or it could be an A. Very badly done. So ninsunk or ninsuna. What could that mean? So we go to the next word, kuiwisk. That's not even a word. Kuiwisk. That's a short twig S. And then we have the A that's kind of misplaced. So I think this A, because it has the two dots after it, this A belongs to that line. So that would be kuiwiska. Then a new word, iaksuiwi. And again we have an A that's a bit off, so iaksuiwi, maybe. And A, that's an upside down K, maybe, so I translate it as a K. Then we have an S, U, I, and then the A. So that's not really that off, except this one is maybe upside down. So we continue. Laukers. So if that's a backwards L, we have an A, we have a U, backwards K, and then we have this R, the nasal R, and we see this one as an S. So that becomes laukers. Then we have a half of a double dot. There's traces of one below. Same with the next one. We have a dot and traces of one below. And this also could be as short as this auk, meaning and. But for the space, someone maybe decided to abbreviate and take off some letters, because you're supposed to understand this anyway, maybe. And then we have this M or R, depending on if it's an M or it's an upside down R. But it probably is an R, because next line, if we discard this weird upside down pretty badly made U, and we get U-N-E. Then you actually get the word rune. Could also, that could be a name, probably not Iron Age or early medieval, but it can also mean to write runes. You runed the stone, you put runes on it. So that could make the word rune. And then we have the last weird signs that makes basically no sense at all. RKSN, if we're kind. So this could, same as this R up here. If we fill it in and get an R, maybe this could be the belly on the head, and they skip this line and this line. And that could be a backwards K, that could be a very weird S, and that could be an N or a K, who knows. So that's where we are. Kadlakar, Slar or Slam, Kursi, Akwi, Ninsunna or Ninsunk, Kwiwiesk A, Jak Swiwia, Laukers A, Rune, something something. So there we are. Now, is this fake or is this real? Can we even make a translation of this? Well, if we try our best, this I have filled in what's missing, in my interpretation at least. Then we get this A. So Kadulakr. Then I made this into an R. This could possibly be an R rune, so that makes RR, which makes absolutely no sense at all. We have the A and the M, and decided to make that an M this time. So this is how you do when you translate runes. You play around with them and see what you get. And then, as you can see, I have filled in the R, this one, and also here. Maybe that's what this is, RS, which makes no sense whatsoever. And also here, the short tweak S is filled in. And here, instead of making this one an L, we made it a T. That would be Tauker. Tauker. That could actually be a word. And then again, filled in the S here with made an R. See, it's a bit off here. I'm not good at making these images, but I do anyway, because I think it's fun. So don't hate me. And in this last word, maybe if we can make these into letters too. This one is still nothing. I think it's a question mark, because I have no idea. Maybe a U. So if we take this one and make that into an R, we get an R. We could also make it into an S from the older Futhark. This could be a K, this could be an N, and it's probably supposed to be an S. So I have filled it in as good as I can. So what did we get? Kadulakar, Ram, Kursi, Akli, Rs, Ninsun A. I've been nice there and made it into an A. Kwiwiesk, A Jan Suiwi, A Tauker, R, A R, Une, or S, KSN. So, is it beginning to make sense? Maybe. Because if we also take into consideration that there seems to be some dots missing, we could make more words than we can see with the dots that exists now. Oh, and I also made these double dots, which are single dots here, because there should be another one on both of them. So we could maybe make words out of this. But it still feels like the one who made these runes not only didn't really know how to make runes, which could explain these small peculiarities with the double R's, which we have in 2 places. So maybe he didn't know, he or she didn't know if you should end it with that R or that R, so maybe made them both. That's a very far-fetched interpretation, but it's a possibility. But it also feels like the one making these runes didn't know the language very well. So maybe we have someone from another country speaking another language that has been trying to learn the Scandinavian. I'm not gonna say Norwegian or Swedish, because there was no Norwegian or Swedish back then. So I will say Scandinavian. Maybe they are trying to learn, but are not very good yet. They could be from any place, really. So that's why we get the weird spellings. And if you take someone who don't really know the language and don't really know the runes, but still they want to make a runestone, maybe this is what you get. So I'm not completely convinced that this is a nonsense fake stone. I believe that someone actually made this stone with the intention of making a real stone. And you also have to take into consideration that the most important thing with runestones maybe wasn't that others could read them, but that you made this stone for this person as a memoriam to remember them. Because the reason behind these memorial stones, where you mention who raised the stone over who and how they died, that connects to a very old Norse tradition of a word I can translate, namnkunnig. It means if many people know your name. That the more people who know your name and the longer your name lasts, the longer you live before you eventually fade away into the universe, so to speak. I will make another video about that. But the point with the runestone is to mention the person's name so that people can read it. It's written down, and as long as it's written down and people can read it, the deceased still lives on in the afterlife. So maybe it wasn't that important that others could read this stone. Maybe it was important that the person who made the stone actually made it. That could be the point. But if we do another try of translating this stone, I have continued playing with it. Then we have this first word, Kadulak. Could actually be a name, as I said before. Maybe Gudlak, which actually is a name. We'll see another translation in a minute, but this is the name I can translate from this Kadulak. Because K and G often, the K often stands for G, because there are no G's in the Younger Fudark. And Kadu could be translated as Gud, meaning God. So we have the name Gudlak, we have Gudlake, many names beginning with Gud. Then there is a translation of this that wanted to read Sati, I mean set or put, raised. And maybe if we take a look at this, maybe it is an S, and maybe this is an A. Maybe it's a very poorly, badly written A, but anyway, an A. And this is a weird T that doesn't really sound correct or possible, but maybe that's a theory. And then maybe this maybe was an I with the same kind of weirdness going on there as here. I don't think so, because this is a very clearly cut rune, so I don't think these arms are mistakes. But anyway, we could play around with it and say Sati. That would also follow the common rune writing tradition, that someone set or raised this stone, which is not written. This stone is what it usually says. And then we get Aursi, Auk, Lifr. And then we suddenly have two names. Aursi could actually be a name. I don't know of it previously, but so that could be a name, and Lifr is a name. And what do we have? L-I, some weirdness, E-R-S, something, something, dots. Maybe forgot to put in the F. And Leif is actually a name. You know that name? So Aursi and Leif. And then Sin Sun. That would be good luck, set or raised the stone. Aursi and Leif, his son, his or her son. If that's a very wrongly made S, that could actually be Sin Son. Maybe. It makes sense. And then you put a dot here and makes two words. Auk again. Vivesk. I made an arrow there to see that it continues. Viveska could actually be a name of a female name, a woman, mother, sister, something. Jans, that could be an H. It could be Hans, his, could be, but they forgot the little X on the H. Or Jan is actually a name. I don't know how old that name is, but I think it's medieval at least. So maybe it's his or Jan's. And wee. There is a word called Viv that means wife. So maybe Viveska, the name of Jan's or his wife. And then we go on to the next. Again, and like here, abbreviated. Tauker, toke, or tuk, or something. Probably Tauker could be toke, which is a name. R-A rune. R at runa. R to rune. Or that rune. So it's starting to make sense. Just this word that doesn't make any sense at all if it's not Sati. So good luck, Sati stone. Aursi and Leifr. We actually have the S there. I just saw that now. And that N shouldn't be there. So then we have Sin. So Aursi and Leif, his or her son, and Viveska, Jan's or his wife, and Toke are at runing. So maybe we now have a translation. There is an older translation from Erik Brate from 1911. He made this translation, but he said, I basically will not stand for this, because this is what I can figure out from what we have with my best guesswork, and I doubt this is the true translation, is basically what he said. But he made this attempt, at least. So he made the name Ketilvatr. I have no idea how he came to that conclusion, but Gudlak and Ketilvatr doesn't really. And Ketil is a known name, but Ketilvatr, I don't really think I have seen that name anywhere. But people could have names that not any other person had. I don't know, who knows. And he is the one also who made the Ram into raised. And then he came to the conclusion it said Kam, which could mean Kumbel, that means grave mound. So Ketilvatr raised this grave mound. This Dausi, I don't know where he got Dausi from either, but that's what he got. After Sven, or Swine, Sven, son. So Ninsun or Sinsun he made into Sven, son, his son. Yeah. And then he came to the W, the weird U with the normal U after it, as a to ut west. So to could be a word for died with a bit of imagination, and ut could be out, because ut is what it's called in modern Scandinavian, Norwegian and Swedish. I'm not going to mention Danish because I have no idea about Danish. I know nothing about Danish, so I will not mention it because I will be wrong. So that died, that should be then here, it's not written. Died out west. So Ketilvatr raised this grey mound after Sven, his son, that died out west. That's his interpretation, and I can say I think it's very wrong, because I can't find these words in the text, no matter how I try. My translation, on the other hand, is what we have been speaking about. This Gudlaker set, I borrowed that from Erik Brate, because I believe it makes sense. And then the not written stone, Gudlaker raised this stone after not written or in memory of, because that's what it usually says, and it is what it basically means. And when you raise a stone, you do it in memory of someone, or you do it after someone who has died. Aursi and Leif, Aursi and Leif, or Leif could also be a female name that exists still today. Liv, that's you maybe have heard of the famous actor Liv Ullmann. Leif, maybe something like that. His son, and Viveska, like a name, a female name, Jans or his wife, Jans Viv, or Wee as it said. Then I have two separate translations for the last part. A Tauker are Arune, and Toke were runing, or runing meaning wrote or made these runes. So Gudlaker raised the stone, and Toke made the runes. Or Atauker Ararune, that died, RA runed or carved. RA being short, and that would make this stone very medieval, because I don't think any Iron Age or early medieval people shortened their first and last names in this way. That's a very modern way of writing your initials. I personally haven't seen it. Maybe some of you have, but I haven't. That would make it Ørsi and Leif, his son, and Jan's wife, Viveska, Jan's wife, that died, R.A. ruined. Mr. R.A. ruined, or Mrs. or yeah, whatever. So that's my interpretation of it. And when you get this far in your interpretation, it kind of looks like someone, maybe dyslexic. I bet there were dyslexics back then too, as there are now. Maybe they just couldn't write. Maybe they couldn't handle the language fully. So they made up what they thought it should say. They basically maybe didn't know all the runic letters, so they watched and looked at other runestones in the area and made someone translate them and pretty much figured out what letters to, what signs to use. And that could be the reason for them being upside down and backwards and all that, because he maybe remembered the shape but didn't know that or understand that it had to be in a certain way. And if we did look at the Rökstone, that goes from left to right, right to left, up to down, down to up, or backwards, forwards, all kinds of ways, because that stone was made by a master. So maybe he thought, oh, it doesn't matter which way I carve the runes. And it probably was the first runes this person ever made, which could make them weird. But it kind of makes sense when you have this text in front of you, that this could be what was the purpose of the stone. That this good luck put up a stone for Ørsi and Leif, his son. So who Ørsi was, that's, we don't know that. Maybe someone, Leif's pal, that he was doing something with, and they both died together. And Viveska, his wife, maybe Leif's wife, or Good Luck's wife, or maybe Jan's wife. So maybe this Ørsi and Leif and someone called Jan's wife died some way doing something, and then he asked his pal Toke or Tauker maybe to write the stone for him, because Good Luck couldn't write. Who knows, maybe he was blind, or who knows. But this far the text kind of makes sense, so maybe this ÖG137 isn't fake after all. Maybe it's just weird. And if this sounds far-fetched to you, then I would like you to go out somewhere and look at what people actually write today on the internet or in schools or wherever people write stuff, and you will see that people still can't spell or write or even know what words mean. So I don't think there was a huge difference back then. And as I said, I think dyslexic people were around even in the Iron Age or in the medieval age, whenever this was made. This stone is officially dated to the late 900s, early 1000s. So 950 to 1050, somewhere like that. I haven't actually seen the actual stone myself, so I can't make any interpretations, but from the spelling and the runes used and the names, because Viveska is the Viveka name, could be so young that this S should be a C. So Viveka, that would become, and that makes it very young. The use of medieval dotted runes And the uncertainty about the double R, which R to use, could mean that this way, the old way of spelling, was so old by this time that they didn't really know how to read them. Because language changes, as you know. But I think it's not fake, I think it's real. And I think the person who wrote it just was pretty bad at runes and spelling. Runes and spelling. That's a pretty horrible combination. But that's what I believe. So you make up your mind. If you have any comments on this translation, then please let me know. But this is what I came to from the hodgepodge of signs and letters on the stone that has been judged to be a complete and total fake, which I believe it isn't. So there you go, how to read runes. Next time maybe I will do another stone, or maybe I will do a reaction. That could be interesting. We'll see what happens. But for now, thanks for watching, see you again next time.